tattoos.
Yeah, get that tattoos. Hello Evertonians, and a warm welcome to the All Together Now Everton podcast. As you can see here, we're at the Bramley Moore Pub on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, officially now Everton's future home. This is a free monthly podcast, and if you're interested in more Everton podcasts direct to your device, click on the description below. On with today's show. On a momentous day in Everton Football Club's history, remember this, the 26th of July 2021, the first phase of the building of the Bramley Moore Stadium begins. Big story, Greg. Is this one of the biggest days in Everton Football Club's history?
No, not quite.
No?
I think in many ways, in the history books, it might go down as, but I think it'll probably be. There's been bigger days in terms of winning titles and Goodison Park becoming our first permanent home. I think there will be bigger days in terms of the first game in there and the last game at Goodison, and maybe even a trophy along the way. Who knows? Or post Bramley Moore move. I think this is an important day. But I wouldn't go quite with that much hyperbole to say it's one of the biggest days in our history now.
He's playing it down, isn't he, Gav? Come on.
I'm going to have to agree.
We're back. West Ham nothing again. Come on.
But we've got it back here.
Of course you have.
Seriously, I'm going to temper that by saying I think it's not as big a day as the day when it was announced, when we sat here 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, that was a big day. So everything since then sort of followed on. It's not really like it's just a natural progression, isn't it? I think when it was announced, that was real excitement because you could see that the future there. Now we're just realising that, aren't we? So I think the whole project is one of the biggest things in Everton's history, isn't it? Yeah. That's the thing. Not today. Yeah. The whole project is. This is just a major, landmark along the way, isn't it? Yeah.
But Greg, Gav was right there. We sat here 2017 when the location that was it. That's where we're going to be. We're here, obviously 4 years on. Now, we've gone through a lot, obviously, public consultation, planning permission, government give it the go-ahead, council give it the go-ahead, everyone's backed it. This is it now. It's actually being built behind us. Surely to God, I can twist you down and say, this is... I know what you're saying in terms of winning cups and playing our first games here, but now is the first day that the dream is now realised.
It is a huge milestone. I'm not to undermine how important it is on the sort of time scale of its history, and as I say, it probably will in many years from time, and you look back at that timeline, look bigger. Does it feel massive at the moment? I mean, other than the fact that we're finally back together, we were just saying before we started recording, first time in almost 18 months, and obviously there is finally something tangible happening just about 50 yards from us now, isn't it? There's work happening, there's bits and pieces of structure arriving, and it is really exciting, and maybe history will back you. Said you were right too, but I think probably, like, for example, the Riverine Cut or the first game there, I think they'll supersede, a bit like Gav said, really. It's an important milestone on the process, but there'll probably be even bigger days to come, I would say.
You two aren't going to be happy to lifting a trophy in their eyes, to be
honest. No, I think Greg's right. It's part of it. The word journey. I'm going to use it.
Well, anyone can say in 4 years, 4 years ago, Gav, anyone can say we want to build a stadium there.
I think it's great.
Now, for 4 years on, the thing's actually getting built.
You can't be blasé about it. It's actually, walked down here before, and there's people with high-vis jackets on, and there's all sorts of activity, and there's things, lorries for signs and stuff. So it's an important day in that respect, and it's tangible progress. So I suppose that's where it is big. A big day. Before they would be starting first spade in the ground, all this type of stuff. Well, it is a big day because you can actually see that now. Yeah. It's there. You can actually see it being built even now. So yeah, I'll half agree with you. So I can never fully agree with you.
Of course you can. It's part of the podcast.
That's like the definition of insanity when you find yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So a big day, but hopefully there'll be bigger days.
I'd say as well, it's a massive day just for the city and the region.
Yeah.
In some ways, things will never be the same now, especially for this part of Liverpool. When you look around and this stretch of road, isn't it? It's still a little bit desolate, and that's obviously no disrespect to the people. Well, not many people do live around here, do they? Really? Yeah. That's the point. And, we spoke about UNESCO in recent podcasts, but I think the fact of the matter is that this is going to absolutely transform this part of the city, and in a relatively short period of time. maybe in 12 months we'll see some real infrastructure. We might see the Husker Stadium, whatever it is. Things will never be quite the same, and it'll change for the better.
But a bit of an insight to what's happening today. There are currently divers in the dock looking for any bombs from previous world wars. That's what they're in there for, apparently. The next phase of it, Greg, is obviously draining the dock and then filling it in.
Yeah.
We're hearing there's obviously going to be a wall inside the dock, because obviously in 100 years' time, that was an agreement with the council. If they want to take the dock back, then this is going to be all put in place. It's going to be absolutely fascinating to see this over the next 3 months, actually seeing the water being taken out the dock, and then we'll see some groundwork being put in. It's all beginning to look a bit real now, but the next phase after that will be obviously funding. We're hearing there could be murmurs in maybe 2 or 3 weeks' time where we could hear some whispers about funding. That's the huge next part of it, isn't it? The funding, because I've got a feeling, what I'm hearing is that there's going to be huge companies falling over themselves to be a part of this project.
Yeah, I mean, as we just hinted at, the size of this project for not just Everton but the region and for actually the UK.
Yeah.
Because I think, wasn't someone saying in our last pod, or maybe it's Frank McKenna, it's going to be one of the biggest construction projects of its type in the UK, certainly outside of London anyway. It's going to attract attention from all around the world. It's in an iconic city anyway, and the fact that it's going to harness that skyline, I don't think we'll be short of people wanting to back it and get involved in putting money into it in various different capacities. So it's really, I mean, I'm sure, people will come in dribs and drabs to the Bramley Moore as the months go on, but even just chatting to the regulars in there, it's going to be interesting to see how much their way life is going to change too. So they're a quiet little local, or people who work on the docks down there. It's not going to be like that for much longer, is it?
It's not. Gav, if Gavin Buckland Limited, the company, has a few £1 billion in the bank,
what do you mean if?
would he be interested, the managing director of the company, to get involved in this project?
I suppose so, yeah, in terms of lending money to Everton you're talking about.
Yeah,
I would imagine so. I know we've got talks about concerns later, I'll talk about that then, but yeah, I think my understanding is Mashiri funding first.
Yeah, it's first part of the phase, yeah.
Which is normally the reverse, isn't it? But yeah, you could imagine there'll be people out there who, and our understanding is that Everton have spoken to lots of people there. And,
yeah.
It'll be, I'd look at it.
Look at it?
Yeah.
Would you want to sponsor it? Would you want to sponsor it, Have your name on the banks of the amazing.
Yeah, I think you don't realise that, just from the financial perspective, how difficult it is. Especially we know what the prevailing economic environment we've had COVID, we're on the back of Brexit. I mean, obviously, and so the financial environment has been very turbulent, hasn't it? So that's the other thing to take into account. But yeah, if I had the 300 million quid to invest, look at that. Yeah, definitely.
How much do you think Brexit will affect it at the moment?
I'm not sure, and who knows? I mean, it depends where we're getting the stuff from, doesn't it? To construct.
Good point.
It was when one of the things that was raised a couple of years ago about it was like cheap labour, that type of stuff. So there's lots of different angles to it, really. But I wouldn't like to say related to the project, but I don't think it helps, because something like this needs stability, don't you? And that's just, and with COVID, that's just generated a lot of uncertainty.
When we had when we had Frank McKenna on from Downtown Business, he was actually saying, he said there will be investors out there falling over themselves. He said it's like free money out there now. He said this could be a really good opportunity. These banks now will be falling over themselves to lend Everton the money to get back on the straight and narrow. That's what he was actually saying. He said this could be an ideal opportunity just post-COVID. Do you agree?
So what did he mean?
He basically said the banks now would be prepared to lend you a lot more money than what they would have been pre-COVID.
Just because the scarcity of things like this.
Exactly, yeah.
So they want to invest in
bricks and mortar. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, yes, he did. You're right, I remember that now. Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? That's a good positive way of looking at it. I suppose the other way of looking at it is saying they might be a bit more risk averse because of COVID. But these banks have weathered, recessions, downturns. And although COVID is pretty much very unprecedented, they'll have long-term forecasting for how they're going to recover. and I'm sure this, funding a stadium, it would be a drop in the ocean to some of these institutions, but it'll be probably part of their strategy for how they're going to want to make money, because that's what they're in it for, aren't they?
Yeah, of course,
There's no charities, but hopefully they see this as something, a winning project that will get an easier return for them. And so it's win-win, good for the lenders and good for Everton.
Good for Everton, indeed. Well, let's get to matters in terms of the stadium. We talked about the funding, the insight of what's going on. Let's talk about the stadium itself, Gav. We've spoke about it in many, many podcasts, but we'll just give a brief outline of it. Any worries or concerns first about the stadium?
As a supporter or as the sort of bigger picture, what we've just been talking about? Or
as a supporter and as a scouser as well?
There's no real worries and concerns about that. I've still got 52,000. There's still a lot of seats to fill. I've always said that. It's a lot of seats to fill.
You've been consistent on that one,
mate. Even though there's a big waiting list.
There's still a lot of seats to fill. That's always been.
He'll be getting stiff on Twitter. He knows.
It's coming. It's coming.
It is a lot of seats to fill every week. It is, seriously. That's not. But I'm sure the club. The club are very clever, aren't they? And I've been very clever at just having the right pricing policy and stuff like that. To fill the seats. So I'm sure, even though the fact you've got to pay the money back for any loans and stuff, I still like to think that there'll be some scope within that for filling the seats at cheaply. Because obviously it opens the corporate aspect of it a lot more, doesn't it? We said that before. So that's a concern, but maybe not as much a concern as it was a couple of years ago. The two about the project, there's two things. Well, today, first of all, that it's done within the timescale, that there's no delays. Any project of this type, we've spoken about the complexity. Well, at 3 years, well, actually, sometimes they take a lot longer than that for a lot. Especially the site we're on, where we've got divers.
Looking for bombs.
And I'm not belittling that. That's one of the sites is inherently risky, isn't it, to build on. You get the reward at the end of it, but it's risky. That's the first thing. The second thing, going back to finance, that it costs what we said projected it will be. Because if it goes above that, then obviously, we have to, it's extra liabilities for the club. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, it's linked to those two. We're saying the second one is that the whole project is funded on one thing, isn't it? If you fund one thing, that there will be a Premier League, that Everton's revenue streams will be the same over the period of the time, and all that because of the Premier League. Which was, it's a bit, that goes back to the concerns I think over that. It's a bit like when we employed Sam Allardyce in 2017. That was done because we didn't want to be seen to be near the bottom of the Premier League. When we're talking to people that lent us money, we were saying, actually, we can guarantee you we'll be in the Premier League while we're paying money back. And that was one of the reasons why Allardyce was brought in. I'm saying that. And so there's a big assumption there that actually the Premier League and football will stay as it is at the moment over the period of the time that we pay money back. Well, as we've seen over the last 2 years,
can't take anything for granted sometimes.
The Super League, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm sure there'll be lenders noting that. So it's not, it doesn't necessarily mean if there's a change that it actually will be to Everton's detriment. It could be sort of on the tails of the elite, and we end up being part of a bigger, richer group of clubs. But it's that uncertainty over the way football's organised that what you would like from a lender's perspective is we just want to see your Premier League revenues every year, as they are at the moment for the next 20-25 years that we're lending money for. We don't any of that other sort of instability around football and the way it's organised that may impact on that. Actually, we don't really want to see. We don't want that. And that's the third concern, because football's going to change. It is. It's going to change, of course, it is, the way it's organised. I don't think the business model is sustainable as it is, as we've seen. That's why people wanted to be in the Super League initially, wasn't it, around Europe. And so that's the other concern I've got, really, that the whole thing, us paying money back, is based on the business model as it is at the moment being retained. And we don't know that, do we?
No, it's a good point Gav made there in terms of obviously what's going to happen over the next 100 years, because this debt this debt on the stadium is going to be on Everton. Everton need to be in the Premier League. If there is one in 50-60 years time, that no 6 clubs jump out and join their Super League. So it is a bit of a gamble, as Gav's touched on there, for any investor looking at it, to get involved in Everton at the moment. So is that one of your concerns, Greg?
I think the uncertainty over something is like when you set out to do anything big, you know, whether it's on this scale or, you know, on a sort of individual scale, you're always at the mercy to a certain degree of external factors, right? So, for example, I'm not being pessimistic, but you never know whether or not the downside of the sort of inflation in the economy that the government had to do through COVID with the furlough schemes and things like that levels out, and I don't even know if there'll be a downturn or a small recession next year or later on. I hope not, but it's not unfeasible. And in terms of that affects the cost of borrowing or labour, or all things that we just don't know, do we? Yeah. So the uncertainty in a way is a concern, but let's actually be positive, because you're always going to have that uncertainty no matter what, and COVID's just another variable, quite a big variable, but it's just another variable. And Everton have had the ambition and the courage, if you like, and we've got the thing that kind of comforts me in the background is Mishiri and his partner Elisha Usmanov's vast just staggering wealth, and I think that's, to have that in your corner, you can probably, you know, navigate some of the worse or some of the different things that could go wrong. You've always got that buffer of cold hard cash.
Yeah, I suppose, Gav, though, that in any walk of life, if you're actually, like if you're buying a house, you're taking a risk on you being employed in 20 years' time by getting the same wages on you. It's just, that's like in any walk of life. This is just on a different scale, isn't it?
Yeah, but some of that's within your control, isn't it? A lot of it's within your control.
If you get made redundant,
yeah, but you still get another job, can't you? Something like that. Some of this is outside of our control. We are at the mercy, to some degree, as you've seen, the big beasts of European football.
Yeah.
What sort of cliche, and so that's those are my concerns. Just so, you know, you said about what excites you is.
Come on, what excites you about it?
As part of the Everton Heritage Society, I've been privy to some of the stuff that the club wants to do around the stadium, and you know, no stone has been left unturned. You know, in terms of like what they're thinking of doing and sort of the plans and all that type of stuff, retaining the heritage, and that excites me. I think that'd be brilliant. You know that and also as well that we got to remember what's happening at Goodison as well within all of this as well. So the concerns about it, like you say, any investment decision there always is, but there's a lot of things there that excite me as well, what the club wants to do, and you won't believe, I mean, this was a couple of years ago now, the amount of detail that the club had to go into in terms of building on, you know. We all know like the things that you can't take away like one stone. Literally, you know, everything has to be accounted for, and you cannot believe the complexity about it. And people have criticised the club for stuff in the past, rightly or wrongly, but I'll tell you what, you can't criticise them for the work that they've done on this. Yeah. It's just unbelievable on what they've had to do and the time and effort they spent and the imagination in doing it. You know, it's also been fantastic.
What excites you about it?
The blue wall. Yeah. The home end, that the future Gladys Street, so to speak. Yeah. I think I can only imagine, and even the air stuck up at the back of your neck, thinking about a night game down here, with, as you said, Gav, 52,000, a Champions League game, a Merseyside derby. The atmosphere down here is just going to be incredible. Yeah. Going to be absolutely incredible. It's just going to be a sea of blue on the Mersey. And no team, I don't care who they are, is going to fancy coming down here. No team whatsoever. That excites me. That stands and seeing just a big wall of Everton fans sucking that goal in. That's the one for me. What about you?
I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? Just, I think, seeing, it sounds quite basic, but actually just seeing it on Liverpool's skyline. It's going to be the most significant addition to our famous skyline since like the Three Graces or the Live building was built. And it's, you know, all right, it might not be staggeringly tall like the Live building, but it's going to be huge. Probably the biggest, one of the biggest in our lifetime, maybe.
Definitely.
I mean, because the Echo Arena was big when that was built, but that's like
this has got a
small scale by comparison.
Yeah.
In terms of capacity, 5 times the capacity.
Yeah. So that's what we were saying before. Goes back to what we were saying at the start of the pod. Is today's not necessarily the most important day, but this whole thing that we're talking about within the history of Everton Football Club is one of the most important things. You know, for all the reasons what Greg was saying there. So there's lots to excite us, I think.
From Anfield to the Bramley Moore, three stadiums. Let's talk about our current one. Just briefly, gents, we've got approximately round about 60 odd matches left at Goodison Park. Maybe a bit more, given delays here and there. Possibly, hopefully, a few more during cup games. When we go back to Goodison Park in a month's time, it's going to be quite emotional now, Gav, having seen what we've seen today.
Well, I think it'd be emotional anyway, because no one's been there for 18 months for the start, so there's like two things going on there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I get that. I mean, maybe not. I think going back initially is all about because no one's been there for 18 months. I think, as you see, the number of games, you can just imagine when your head ticking down, can't you, like from 60, don't forget Champions League, and go back up again.
Like I've been in jail to score.
Exactly. And you can. I don't think you'll see it now, but I certainly think once you get to like one season left, something like that. Remember our last season? I think once you get to our last season there, which hopefully will be 3 years, for coming in 3 years' time, is once we get our last season, that's I think going to be, the last derby, the last game against Man United, the last FA Cup game, last Champions League semi-final.
Hey, I love it.
You know what I mean? So everything happens for the last time at Goodison while you're there. I think the last season will be the time when it really hits home with people. And well, hopefully it goes to all that. So we're going to be playing here for another year, But yeah, I think not so much going back now about Bramley Moore, because I think it was more the COVID stuff. But I certainly think in 18 months, 2 years time, it'll be emotional. Very emotional, yeah. But your last interview outside the ground, so
I know.
As well, like,
it will be, won't it? Sad times indeed. Greg, we all love Goodison Park, don't we? But is this now what we've witnessed over the last 18 months in terms of obviously the COVID situation and now the Bramley Moore Stadium? We're going to appreciate Goodison Park even more than what we ever thought we would.
Yeah, good point. We've probably had a little taste of what life without Goodison will be like, an extended taste of what it'll be like. I still think it's a little bit surreal to think that in less than a month we're going to be back in a full Goodison. Still can't quite, I mean, look, I'm made up about it, but I can't quite get my head around it, with like a, listen, the rates, people, we hear enough about COVID, this podcast isn't talk about that, but given the numbers that we're seeing in the city and the country, I think it's a bit surprising that we'll be back in a full stadium, but nevertheless, looks like that's what's going to happen. And it'll just be surreal and special in many different ways. I wonder if we'll even get back in the press box, or that might be a thing of the past, who knows. All I'd say is RIP the cheese board. If that's
I was going to say, what excites me is the press box. Like somebody 6
well, that's
foot
why we're obviously moving to the Bramley Moore, isn't it? Because of the new facilities, new directors' boxes, executive boxes. It's just going to be a different.
No, we're moving basically so he can stretch his legs. Right?
So Gav can stretch his legs.
Yeah,
considerable legs.
But that is the point, isn't it? But what's been forgotten, I think, in Bramley Moore, I wrote about this a couple of years ago, is the fact that everybody's talked about the stadium in itself and the commercial opportunities and the finance opportunities it presents. But what's forgotten is we need a new ground with better facilities, full stop. Yeah. That's one of the and that's one of the reasons why that is the main reason why we're moving. And it goes back to Goodison. There'll be lots of things in Goodison that I won't miss, to be fair.
What will you miss about it, Gav?
What will I miss? The history going there, I think. When you go there, 50 years ago now, I think you miss that. But I think there's, I say, lots of opportunities for memories to be created here.
I've gone all emotional then when he said just going there.
I know.
I don't know. I'll just you're right, Gav. I'll just miss going to the ground. It's weird, isn't it? You can't. It
sounds like stating the obvious, but that's the key thing, isn't it? It's part of that routine of what you do in the house before you leave, the journey there.
Yeah.
Walking along Goodison Road. I know it's cliche, but all the sights, smells, sounds, and then being in the and then again, it's still cliche, but it's true. It's where that's been throughout all our lives, isn't it?
Yeah. It's that routine, isn't it? And I think we talked the other week about it, that actually, when people say about going the game and missing it, it's not just the game, it is the routine around the game, isn't it? Meeting people before and after the game, the travelling there and stuff like that. that gives you a strange enough a warm glow. Not necessarily be 2-0 or
the game's the least.
Absolutely.
It gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it? Your social stuff.
But no, I think there'll be lots, but you'd be able to create a different set of memories here, won't you? That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. The next generation, very lucky indeed. And let's get to matters on the pitch, gents, before we wrap up the podcast. We won a cup, Greg. The Flooders a cup, 10-9 on penalties. The Everton did well. Damani Gray, Andros Townsend, Ismail Begovic scored the winning penalty. What do you think about as a number 10, Damani Gray? Because that's where he was played in a 4-2-3-1 system. Everyone thought we were going to play without an opening.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he was coming in to play as a winger as well. So, interesting to see that he's got that facet to his game. I think Benitez seemed impressed by playing him there. I don't know if that'll be somewhere he'll play all the time, but obviously, we can't really dwell on things, but we're going to need someone who can play in that area in the season coming. So to have him as an option if Rafa wants to play with the number 10 will be really good. And I think he is an exciting player. If he can fulfil his potential here and get a bit more end product, it could be a really smart bit of business. I was after concede that you were right already. It looks like from that, and a lot of
the crowd there's some writing. I'm writing for us, Greg.
Early doors.
Go on.
But Andros Townsend already looks a shrewd move. I think his work rate alone, I'm happy with, and even if it's just a squad player, I think that goes a long way for me. And Benitez was speaking about it, wasn't he? You don't find work rate like that on the 4th floor. Was it John
Lewis? You do. He's owned indeed. Trust me.
Not a few years ago.
No, definitely not. Gav, could he be like a fan's favourite? Like a Stephen Naismith type of player?
It's that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's got to be a bit close for
when I think of Andros Townsend,
a
bit like Stephen Naismith, 2 words: good pro. And the dressing room can't have enough of good pros.
Yeah, spot on.
Simple as that. Yeah. But Naismith is, style-wise, completely different players, different physical attributes, different skills, but both got in common good pros, and you need them in the squad. I think we're a bit of squad that actually needs good pros, to be fair, as we've seen over the last few seasons. And I think Townsend definitely gets into that category. That's not to undermine his footballing ability, by the way. He's not there just to keep the morale up in the dressing room and a bit of leadership. It's just that I always think of him like that, And I think good signing, in terms of what he's costing us. Excellent.
I think what's been a down verdict on Everton over the last couple of years is that when everyone's been bigging up the Townsend's transfer, me included, we say he works hard, workaholic, and that says a lot about the previous couple of regimes that we've seen. A few players have just actually threw the towel in. And now we've got a player who's run through the qualifier.
Yeah, we've missed some of that stuff over the last 2 or 3 years. But I think he could be involved a lot more than what you think. To be fair, and if he is, that's probably because he's doing well. Yeah, and we've needed somebody who can cut in from that side. Yeah. He at the bar last night, didn't he? Doing that. I know it's just a standard move for him, but we've missed that, haven't we? I know James has done it a couple of times, but a bit pace as well. So, good move, Townsend.
Whipping balls in the box, Greg, that's what we've wanted for a while, isn't it? There's only been Luca Dean over the previous 18 months, 2 years, and Calvert-Lewin's been starved of late. So to get Damani Gray and Townsend whipping balls in, he's going to be rubbing his hands, isn't he, Calvert-Lewin?
Yeah, and I think it's the consistency of the quality of not every cross is going to be absolutely bob on, but you want a higher quality or success rate than we have had from like Civil Willoughby and players like that, and even before him from Walcott. And obviously, if you think about the sort of right back, obviously Coleman's crossing isn't his strongest quality, is it? So hopefully Townsend will be pretty much spot on most balls, and if Gray can, like I say, get that consistency in that end product more, then we could have loads more options, and Calvert-Lewin can only flourish even further.
That's your lot, Evertonians, on a momentous day in Everton Football Club's history. The Bramley Moore project begins. Thanks to Gav for jumping on as ever. Me and Greg will be back this week, so please do subscribe to our Patreon channel. The link is in the description below. We're back here at the Bramley Moore very, very soon. Thank you very much for tuning in. Cheers. Nice one. Cheers. Nice one. Cheers.